You're listening to the Industry Alchemist podcast. The definition of alchemy is a seemingly magical process of transformation or creation. This podcast exists to hear the stories of entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders doing just that in their industry. We hear about the journey of the brave souls carving a new path, moving their industry and our lives forward in a seemingly magical way. I'm your host, Matt Brower, co-founder and managing broker of Column Commercial Partners, helping companies save money on their real estate.
Hello to my beautiful listeners. This is Matt Brower, your host of the Industry Alchemist podcast. This episode's guest has an incredible story of impact in the mental health space. After receiving his doctorate degree in psychology, Brett Donnelly co-founded Acacia Counseling and Wellness, which provides counseling services to college students across the country. Acacia was courted by a strategic buyer, and they sold 7 years from inception. Brett's journey then took him toward the ethereal realms after having sat in a plant medicine ceremony. Out of this experience, he realized the immense power and opportunity this medicine has in helping shift the things that hold us back from true emotional and psychological freedom. Being the creator that Brett is, he founded his latest project, Limitless, in June of 2023. Limitless.me, it's LMTLSS.me, provides psychologist-led, psychedelic-assisted transformations. As most of you know, this is becoming widely recognized and adopted form of healing, even by Western medicine. And Brett is a perfect example of this bridge being between the two taking place. And also, Brett, I really appreciate you being here. This is a very big part of my journey as well. And I tell people all the time, I'm a massive proponent of this movement, and it actually has a lot to do with who I am as a person and what I've built in the world. So really appreciate this, you being here, and I look forward to hearing this story.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
So so you got your psychology degree from, was it University California, Santa Barbara?
It was actually a school in Chicago called Adler University, and for my internship and my postdoc, I applied kind of all over the country and landed at UCSB because what better place in the world to be than Santa Barbara?
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I have friends there. I've been through there.
Yeah,
and it's just gorgeous. So, but you since moved to Colorado, yes?
That's right, in Denver now. Yeah.
Okay. Recently.
Yeah, I just moved here about 2.5 years ago after we sold the company.
What pulled you to Denver? I maybe know, but
well, yeah, kind of a few reasons. I mean, I moved from Santa Barbara to Minneapolis. We had some kind of family health issues come up. And then when we sold the company, my wife and I were both just getting kind of tired of the winters in Minneapolis. And the acquiring company was based out of Denver. And so I was going to stay on with them for a couple of years and help them with the transition. And so figured, why not move to Denver where the winters are a little bit more mild? And yeah, I don't know, it just seemed like the right place for us to be.
Yeah, and you have all these additional activities to partake in.
The mountains are just beautiful. So
yeah, well, it's also no coincidence that one thing I lived, obviously still have a lot of connections to Colorado, down here, spending a lot of my time in Panama now working on this beach home community. But one thing I am very proud of about Colorado is the state and the people there tend to be on the forefront of adoption of new things.
Yes.
And that's a blanket statement, but it's so true. It's like the whole purpose of this podcast. Let's find different ways to push against the norm and kind of move how we operate in the world forward. And psychedelics and treatments of a lot of different medical modalities is a great example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really proud of Colorado for passing Prop 122 a couple Novembers ago, which legalized the possession and gifting of psilocybin, and I feel like that was a huge step forward for the state joining Oregon and really trying to open people's minds to some of the healing powers of these psychedelic medicines.
Yeah. So you were clinically trained psychologist.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I always considered myself an entrepreneur first, and
Okay.
psychology was kind of a second passion of mine. And so I followed it for as far as I could. Really liked the idea of being able to own my own business, but also help a lot of people along the way. And so I got trained in clinical psychology, and was a therapist for quite some time until the business grew to the point where I could no longer provide clinical work, and I had to kind of focus all my efforts on the business side of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a distinct thing for a clinically trained person to become curious about this other side, what plant medicine, psychedelics have to offer in moving consciousness, raising consciousness, moving ourselves forward in that way. Can you talk about how that bridge occurred for you? How did you first start to become curious about this, and how did it come to you?
Yeah, so after I sold Acacia, my initial thought was that I would try to find my next, kind of big business project. And I started just sort of asking around, talking to some friends, and trying to inquire a bit more about what's kind of up and coming in the industry. And one of the things that I was always frustrated by at Acacia was that we just had this growing wait list of clients that needed to be served. And therapy was taking so long that the wait list was growing at a rate that was more rapid than people could heal. So what I was really looking for is something that could, act a little bit faster and get some better results. And I happened to also stumble upon, it's a book, but I actually watched the Netflix series first called How to Change Your Mind.
Man.
And was a very sort of inspirational, documentary for me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was kind of like, I started digging a little bit more into the research and just seeing how effective that these medicines, mostly I was looking at MDMA and psilocybin, and how effective that they were treating depression, anxiety, PTSD, substance abuse, you name it. And I started kind of trying to conceptualize these medicines a little bit more and figure out why are they reaching people on so many different, for so many different diagnoses. Usually you see medications that are very specific to, different diagnoses, and these are helping kind of all around. And started realizing how much trauma plays a role in various diagnoses across the spectrum. And that really what these psychedelic medicines were treating was trauma. And that was how people break out of anxious spells and depression and so on and so forth. And so, at that point, I decided I asked my wife, who had, previously tried psychedelics when she was in high school. And I was like, hey, I'm kind of nervous about doing this. I've never done it before. You want to roll with me to the therapist's office to give this thing a go? So.
Wow, that's very cool. And what was the first thing?
MDMA.
Okay, so literally rolling. No.
Yes, exactly. Totally.
Yeah.
Went up to Boulder and did that. So yeah.
Oh, very cool, man. Well, congratulations. How long ago was that?
That was 1.5 years ago.
Okay. There's one thing that I'm very much a word language person.
Yeah.
And there's a word that you used, trauma.
Yeah.
Which, in talking to so many people about this topic, a lot of people don't resonate with that word trauma, because the word trauma creates a whole world of meaning that world is very different for all of us. Yes. What does trauma mean? And somebody that is, grew up in the Middle East and has been around, that chaos, the word trauma means something very different than somebody that maybe was, taken advantage of when they were a child in some way. And I want to just make a quick distinction. For me, trauma could be something as significant as being involved in war and having PTSD, or it could be something as significant as, I wore a color of t-shirt when I was a kid and the kids made fun of me.
Yeah.
the thing that gets triggered is what we all call trauma. All that's happening is we make that thing mean something about our life, that we now have to operate a certain way in the world.
Yeah.
And we build our entire life around it. So it's about like looking inward and discovering what I like to use, like the automatic processes that our neural pathways are firing within. When we discover how those things got created, that's the key to solving this and becoming free from it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're not the only one. I think some people, struggle with that word trauma because, again, we have this tendency, and it's really unfair, but we try to compare ourselves to like the people that are experiencing the worst traumas.
Yeah.
And so I always try to say, like, there's trauma with a big T and trauma with a small t, but they're both traumatic, and they both can really, resonate within our body.
They both really matter. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can be in, witnessing a war, witness someone's death, or have a really serious medical issue and be hit with, kind of the big T trauma. Yeah, or you can be victims of bullying or of parents who were hypercritical. And let me tell you, like, those can be sometimes have just as severe of an impact as someone who's gone to war. I mean, very different experiences, and they might relate differently to the world. But I don't think people give their internal trauma enough credit for just how much damage it can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And just control our lives.
Yeah. Yes. I'll just say one more thing. When I do this public speaking presentation, and it's on trauma and psychedelics, and I talk a lot about my own trauma. And one of the things that I do starting off the presentation, and mind you, these are in front of, I give these presentations in front of some very powerful, kind of high net worth, high achieving individuals. And I put up a slide, and it has all the different traumas, on the slide. And I ask people to raise their hand and ask them if they've experienced any of these traumas. And usually I get around 85-90% of the room that will raise their hand.
Wow.
So, trauma is not just limited to any particular type of person. Even people that are achieving and having great success still might experience, a high degree of trauma. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you describe that very first experience that you had with MDMA, if you're willing to go into it?
Yes.
Can you describe what you gained access to, and like how this caused clearly these things have caused such a shift in your world that now you're, building this thing Limitless that's going to be incredible. And I'm going to have you talk a little bit more about what it is later, but can you talk about what you've kind of gained access to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so with MDMA, let me just kind of describe a little bit about how it works, and then I'll tell you kind of a bit more about my personal experience. So MDMA really quiets the amygdala, which is kind of this, fight or flight response that we have in our minds. And that response usually is something that has been triggered or that we've gotten used to due to some of our early childhood traumas, right? So, let's say I get bullied in school. I am trying to figure out a way to survive. I'm not an adult yet, so I'm coming up with all these kid ways, these young ways of coping. And I say, okay, this is what I need to do to keep myself safe. I need to achieve as much as I possibly can, so no one can ever make fun of me again, right?
Yeah.
And that was certainly the way that I coped with my insecurities growing up, was that I felt like I needed to achieve and prove to the world that I was enough. And MDMA can really quiet that system, and thereby kind of let all your defense mechanisms, melt away a bit. And so it's left you with it leaves you with this kind of like childhood like state where you get to kind of get out of your mind and drop into your body a little bit more, and really explore what it feels like to be sort of a sacred human being, right? And to kind of get in touch with our soul, or kind of however you want to say it. But the way I think of it is just really getting in touch with ourselves, our true selves, outside of our trauma, outside of our defense mechanisms. And when that happens, it kind of reorganizes your life a little bit, right? So here I am in this therapist's apartment in Boulder, laying down on some mats with my wife, and he takes us through a guided meditation and starts playing some kind of psychedelic spiritual music, just really trying to get my body into a relaxed state. And the medicine kicks in, and I still remember the first feeling of kind of this cool wave coming over my body. And it felt cool, but it felt good. And then all of a sudden, you know, I start like just kind of feeling into my body more. All of my sensations and my perceptions become heightened. So the music, I start feeling the music more. I can feel the blanket that is wrapped around me. I kind of feel fluctuations in my body temperature. And so, yeah, so I think what's so powerful about these psychedelic medicines is just that ability to really start tapping into our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of you know, emotional difficulties are a result of our mind getting in the way and just not letting our bodies relax into the spaces that we exist in. And so, you know, I was able to really kind of relax into that state. Now, one other thing I'll mention is that, you know, a lot of times people talk about MDMA and it's like people talk about just how wonderful it feels and how, you know, it almost makes it seem like you're on cloud nine. And you can get to that point. But what's really interesting is from my experience was after all of those defenses were dropped and I was kind of left back into my childhood state, I noticed that there was a lot of pain that I still had left to process, right? And so MDMA just gave me a way to just just process that pain without worrying about the defenses and keeping myself safe, but just letting my body, you know, move through the pain, whether that was through tears or, you know, whatever else was happening to me in that moment, but was just really getting in touch, you know, more so with that pain instead of trying to block it. And that's, I think, where the healing comes in, right? Is you let the pain move through your body as it's supposed to. You don't try to judge it or keep yourself safe. And then, you know, afterwards, you get this beautiful integration process where you can start realizing, you know, what ways am I keeping myself safe? How am I protecting myself in the outside world? And how is that really causing me damage?
Yeah, it's almost like you're separate your ability to separate your body with your mind. And the mind is always spinning and trying to work and keep us safe. And then when these things are able, you know, help us separate the two, then you can really be with what is so, and what are we holding in our body, what emotions need to come through, without the mind like chattering, playing protector.
Yeah.
And this is kind of how the healing starts to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and I'll just add too, I mean, of course, the psychedelic session itself is a really powerful, beautiful thing. But I really think that the main kind of chunk of the work is done in the integration process. And, you know, typically after you take a psychedelic, you kind of have this 1 to 2 week period where you're just your brain is highly neuroplastic, so very flexible. You're able to kind of see things in your world a little bit differently, and you're able to, you know, after the emotion has kind of passed through your body, you're able to again kind of see like, this is where I'm doing things wrong. I'm working way too much because I'm still trying to prove that I'm enough. But if I can start to feel enough internally, like the medicine showed me, I can let go of some of this work, or, you know, whatever it might be. That was my story, right? Was I needed to let go of this achievement piece in me that was really just deteriorating my soul.
Yeah. It wasn't, you were producing some epic shit in the world, but you weren't feeling fulfilled and actually feeding your soul.
Yes, 100%. I was doing it not for creative reasons, but for self-esteem.
Prove something.
Yeah.
What a great distinction you just pointed out. You mentioned integration. Can you talk about this is what happens after these discoveries get, you know, we find these things out about ourselves. Integration. Can you describe what you mean by that and how the most powerful way to navigate that?
Yeah. So oftentimes under the medicine, you will start receiving certain messages. And the way I like to think about it is those messages have always existed inside of us. It's just that the medicine is creating this sort of gateway, this portal that's between your heart and your head. and that somewhere along the line it got our hearts got kind of cut off, and everything resides in the head. And so it kind of opens up this heart space, and it sends you messages. And so again, the message that I was really receiving, and I was very stubborn at first, because I had a very sort of deep rooted defense mechanism from really, I think the age of 6 or 7, I developed this desire to achieve. I saw my family really struggle, and I, oftentimes felt like that I was a loser, that people weren't going to like me because we were poor. And because, I didn't have enough. Mm-hmm. And so I can still remember from a very young age kind of setting this goal. And Michael Jordan was always my hero growing up. And I just saw how much he achieved and how much positive attention and recognition that he got for all of his achievements. And so I, again, being, 6, 7, 8 years old, I'm just connecting these weird dots in my head. I don't have any idea what life is really about, right? So I start creating these defense mechanisms in my head about okay, you need to achieve, you need to work your ass off, you need to just keep proving to people that you're enough, and then you'll become enough. Well, the problem with this is after I sold my business, which I thought was the ultimate end goal, and I thought, okay, well, once you sell your business, have enough money to never work again, you can finally feel like you're enough. And after selling, I still had this empty space in my heart, and I couldn't figure it out. I remembered a Jim Carrey quote that he said once, that he says that I wish everyone in the world could get rich and wildly famous so that they would realize that that's not the answer.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and so that was the case for me. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So, my integration process was a lot of this open channel and the medicine telling me stop, let go of work, let go of achievement, let go of work, let go of achievement. And I would say, and I mixed MDMA and psilocybin was very helpful to get me to this space too, where I could finally let go of that part of myself and still feel like I'm enough without that. Mm-hmm. So actually, shortly after starting Limitless, I decided to, kind of scale back, way back of what I initially, set out to do. And I actually brought on a partner to take a lot of the business responsibilities off my shoulders. And so she does a wonderful job with that. And I get to kind of focus more on my, kind of creative role in my life and really get to know myself. Who am I apart from this little boy who just wanted everyone to see him as enough? Who am I when I actually start feeling enough? What kind of life do I live when that gets healed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what's happening for me, now. And it's a really beautiful thing, but that's the integration process. It's you take these messages that you learn under the medicine and you really got to shift and put things into place in your life to really respect the messages that you receive, during the session. And that's the hardest work. That's the hardest thing to do. To actually make those changes. Yeah, they're very uncomfortable because they're wait, are you sure you want to do this? You've been doing this for 39 years. Are you sure you want to stop doing this now?
Yeah, that's the human ego fighting. The human ego is meant to keep us safe and and comfortable. And when we have these discoveries about ourselves, the human ego is going to fight to keep you in that place of safety and comfort and not fulfilling and not feeling fulfilled and thriving. And absolutely. You're so right, man. The integration piece many times is the most, it's certainly the hardest. And sometimes it's the most terrifying. Integration for me has meant many times, oh my gosh, I discovered this experience that I had sometime in my life with this person, and look what I made it mean. And now I've created this whole thing in my world. Going and having the conversation with the person to clean it up, and which creates a freedom to create something else and rewrite that story, is many times the form of integration. And that conversation can be terrifying.
Oh my gosh, totally. Actually, Matt, if I could just speak to fear for a moment, because this is something that
Yeah.
has been a very powerful realization just recently, just within the past few months for me. So another big piece of my integration work was my relationship with my wife, and kind of coming to terms with kind of some codependency that her and I had on each other. Like we were filling each other's wounds, right?
Hmm.
And so when my wife started going through this process with me, she started like asking for a lot of space so that she could, kind of heal internally without feeling that pressure from really anyone in her life, whether it was me or a parent or, whoever it might be that maybe wasn't allowing her to find herself. And
Hmm.
I tell you what, I struggled with the fear, of her taking space, and that meaning that I was going to lose her, or that she didn't love me. Like all these messages that I told myself, she didn't
Oh,
find me
making it mean
attractive.
all kinds of things. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I was just sitting in this deep rooted fear, and also I would say loneliness. And as a man, in a patriarchal, culture, it's very, very hard. I feel a lot of shame to experience fear and loneliness.
Hmm.
And I tell you what, though, like as soon as I started tapping into those and not just being in my head and or blaming her for the way things were going, I started to finally, heal. And then I could see our relationship start to, kind of come back together from the perspective of two healed people that actually just want to be together and share time
Mm.
together, instead of two wounded people that were like, have this weird wounded,
Propping each other
connection.
up.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So that fear is so real, and I've experienced some of those most painful moments of my life in the past year and a half of doing psychedelics. So it's not. I always like to warn people, like, hey, if you want to dive into this, you will see a beautiful result, but don't get me wrong, you will experience significant pain along the way. So just be ready for that. But also, hey, guess what? We are born as human beings to be able to work through that pain. So have like some confidence and faith in yourself, and know that you'll get through it and you'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, it's really beautiful. It sounds like your wife started getting connected to that none of the answers are outside of her and they're
Yes.
all within her. And she wanted to isolate herself a little bit to
Yes.
deepen that understanding and that knowing and really find the things that are going to offer her more freedom. And
Yeah.
then you caught on to that too. And then the way I like to put what you said about then come back together is you get connected to this thing called choice. And
Hmm.
when you're two just powerful individuals, super connected to yourself, and that there are no answers outside of me, all there is left is you get to choose who you're going to share this powerful energy with. And you and your wife came back together in that way, choosing each other every day. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's been really an incredible process. And yeah, we've even, done things like stopped wearing our wedding rings. And I'm not saying that this is what people have to do or whatever, but it's like, hey, we don't own each other here. We actually are going to choose each other every day. And then when you
Mm.
actually feel that really authentic love, like, hey, I'm not just here because I made vows 10 years ago to you. I'm here because I like truly love you. And then it's like, oh, that feels so good.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's like a vulnerable share. Appreciate you being
Sure.
showing up
For
in that
sure.
way.
Yeah.
So I want to get into Limitless a little bit now, and so the listeners can really understand what you're building, and me too. Like I want to hear more about what this is and what your vision is, and how people can get involved if they choose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so, it's a very kind of slow moving business. I'm not interested in kind of having this hyper scalability,
Yep.
solution. And of course, I think another big part of this is still waiting for, MDMA and psilocybin to get federally legalized. We had a
Mm.
pretty unfortunate decision by the FDA panel the other day on MDMA and voting it down. So they'll go to an
Mm.
official vote in August, and hopefully they do not side with the panel. But regardless, it's a little tricky to do, to do some of this business in the United States still. although Colorado has a little bit more flexibility. I think my vision with Limitless is just that I really want people to find what I have found and what others in this circle, this psychedelic circle, have found, which is this really sort of deep truth, deep authenticity, and what I think the ultimate goal is for the human condition, which is just unconditional love. And unconditional love is all around us every day. And it's hard to see. And it's hard to see because we're up in our minds and we're telling ourselves we're not good enough. We're telling ourselves all of these bullshit messages that aren't true. And when you start tapping into, your sense of self, and you start tapping into sort of what I would call like source energy, which is just this love that's just constantly surrounding you, whether it's through nature or your relationship with your kids or your spouse or your friends or your family or whoever it is, the person that walks across you in the street and smiles at you. There's so much of it around if you can actually, touch into it and pay attention. And so, my goal with Limitless is to kind of progressively move people, kind of up this pyramid to find, what I call, transformation and transcendence, to truly change themselves, change the way that they view themselves, and then kind of transcend to the highest versions of themselves. And again, the way I see the highest version of themselves, I don't see it as you don't need to create $1 billion company. You don't need to have a 6-pack of abs. What you need to do is find true love for yourself. And as corny as that sounds, that's actually what it's about. And I've seen it, and I'm experiencing it. It's real, and people can find it if they're willing to work and willing to get through some pain. So what does that look like logistically? Well, I do some public speaking events. I lead some large group ceremonies. So just not too long ago, I led a ceremony with a group called YPO and led about 40 people through a small dose of psilocybin. I usually start off with my own personal story and my journey that I think is really powerful and allows people to maybe kind of sink into their vulnerability a little bit. And so, some of those, large group ceremonies are really powerful, just getting a chance to impact several people all at once. And then, as a second part of that, I'll do a lot of individual private work, whether that's working with a couple, whether that's working with friends, whether that's just working with, an individual, and I'll, just bring them into my home and do some psychedelics and use all my clinical psychology skills and all my skills that I've learned in this medicine space about how to find love and let people heal themselves. It's really remarkable as I've always trained in grad school to really feel like I need to have control and command to be able to heal others, right? Like it was my power to do that. And in this medicine space, it's very different. It's actually a trust and a confidence that humans can heal themselves. And you just gotta let them let everything flow through. And it's just really interesting how much my perception of therapy and healing has changed. So my job becomes to have a very safe container, make sure they feel very comfortable, and dig into questions that come up for them in their journey work.
It's I like to say, a lot of us go through this journey and there's this healer, that healer, I want to go see them and have them heal me. When you can get connected to that, you are your own healer, and that's all that actually exists. We can only heal ourselves.
Yes.
Others can provide some guidance and I think, and maybe even show where there's some stuckness, like where in the body are you holding this emotion or whatever. But it's up to us to release it, heal it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say one kind of caveat to that is that there's a lot of people out there that just are calling themselves shamans and calling themselves healers. And, some of those people can actually do some really good work, but I do find too, it worries me a little bit just how quickly this is moving and how many people without any training are, kind of trying to hold space. There's a lot of really important boundaries that need to be established when you're doing this type of work. For example, one of the most important boundaries that I speak with my clients about is touch, and just making sure that they know that I will not touch them unless we talk about that beforehand and they agree to it sober, that if I can grab their hand if things get difficult, and that they're always able to take those boundaries away when they're under the medicine, they're always able to add more boundaries when under the medicine, but they're never able to take the boundaries away, if that makes sense. And so I think,
what a great way to set that up, that safe container that you're talking about creating.
Yeah, there's got to be safety. You have to be really comfortable with space and quiet moments. And, again, you're not trying to have a large presence in this space. You're trying to let the person have the large presence in the space.
Right.
If you're not trained to do that, you can actually do some pretty significant damage. You can re-traumatize people. And so even though I believe in the medicine, I believe in people's ability to heal themselves, I do think it's really important to have a trained professional. I would say try to seek out someone with a mental health degree. I don't think it's required all the time. I'm not that snobbish to pretend that like the only healers can exist with mental health degrees, but I just think there's a level of training and safety that typically comes with that. That you just don't necessarily get everywhere else.
Yeah, I have the same concern. I guess what I'm seeing in the world is a little bit. It makes me nervous to see so many people going to workshops to go learn how to do this.
Yeah.
Let's go to Costa Rica to this workshop, and I'm going to walk away with this ability, learn to this ceremony that I can now do, which involves a lot of this. And it's like, oh, I went to a weekend ceremony, and now I can put that on my website and have people trust me. Like, there's some dangerous. There's some dangerous results that can come from that. But
yeah, absolutely. And it's sad because we need more healers in this country. Like we really do. So I go back and forth and be like, oh, but we need people to do this work because, we can't just have, only psychologists doing it, or it's just too many people that need to be healed. So it's this delicate balance of like needing to make sure people are trained and I don't know, just making sure that that we have enough healers out there.
Yeah. You mentioned shaman. These shamans, like, that come out of the Amazon, they go down there and they spend, like, I'll just speak to like ayahuasca shaman.
Yeah.
They spend months, years sitting with that medicine.
Yes.
The medicine is the experience of that medicine when you are journeying. It's in separate consciousness, this consciousness that a lot of people, people call her the grandmother. She's communicating with you. She's teaching you. And, that's what shamans get connected to.
Yes. And
this, you can't go to shaman school and have necessarily another human teach you how to be a shaman. This is like the natural order of things, that as we heal ourselves, we clear this human body out more and more and more, and keep looking inward, shedding the old ways of us existing. Certain things tend to start emerging, which is getting deeper and deeper connected to this transcendence that you refer to in your website. This, I believe, is the more natural order of things versus going to, the shaman, how to be a shaman workshop. This is just an example, I'm talking.
Yeah, no, Matt, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think with or without mental health degrees, like the most powerful healers are going to be the ones that really deeply heal themselves. That takes time, and you don't just go to a workshop one week and you're like, oh,
exactly.
And so, it doesn't even, to me, it's like, it's not just about the degree. That's just sort of a certain level of perceived safety there, but it's just like, how can you find people that have really invested in their own healing, invested in the medicines, test the medicine, make sure there's no fentanyl in their MDMA.
Yes.
Just really people that are quite cautious and careful, because we have a really awesome opportunity to make a big jump and change in this country. But if we screw it up and people are out there doing this without any, knowledge as to how to do it safely, we're gonna ruin a really big opportunity here.
Such a great point. And it's so correlative to how what you described, how Limitless is emerging. You're like, we're slowing down.
Yes.
This is not tied to any sort of like, where your business mind is trying to interject. No, this is sharing. This is
totally
sharing your healing experience and helping expose people to this magic that exists, which, thank God. Like I always say, ayahuasca is the biggest miracle that we have access to on this earth, that we humans have access to. And it can be terrifying at the same time, but it's a miracle,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, my miracles, I would say MDMA for me is mine, but
MDMA. Yeah.
I mean, everyone has a different medicine that they really like relate to. And so it's important that you experiment with, again, trained professionals and find the one that works best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a great point. Who's the great, perfect person to seek you out that you want to offer this guidance for, like, and how can they reach you?
Well, I have a passion for like kind of two populations, because it's what I've done the most work for through my life. And so, if you're a high achiever, and you've, constantly felt the need to prove yourself, and have never really felt enough, and maybe you battle with depression or anxiety or ADHD because of that deep-rooted need. I really like working with that population, just because, again, I can like relate to that through my own healing. And I also really like to work with couples to deepen intimacy, or even potentially to figure out that they're better suited on their own, however that journey goes. But like working with couples just to kind of get unstuck. Those are the two groups that I probably feel the most passionate about. But really, I think if the question is who is right for this, medicine, I would say, a lot of different mental health conditions can be drastically improved. I would say, make sure that you're checking with your physician or your psychiatrist, because if you're on certain medications, it's really important that you get checked to make sure that those medications don't interfere with some of the medicine. And, you can get some pretty dangerous side effects like serotonin syndrome if you're not careful. And so don't just like go in and ask for MDMA without, first checking again with your physician to make sure that there's not going to be any detrimental side effects, heart conditions and pregnancy. There's certain conditions that you just probably want to avoid doing this work. But, with everything being cleared by a physician, I would say if you have a mental health diagnosis, great. And even if you just want to become a better person and get more in touch with your like unconditional love, with source energy, with spirituality, there's a lot of different use case scenarios for psychedelics. And one last thing I'll add is, like, the goal is not to continue using psychedelics at a rapid pace for the rest of your life.
Right.
The goal is actually to maybe you use them a lot for a year or so, maybe even less. But then the goal is really to, if you integrate properly, you actually should be able to live a psychedelic life without any medicine inside your body. Like, that's what I'm trying to achieve. Is I want to live a psychedelic life with no medicine. So I'm trying to titrate down. And so just to give people a little bit of a sense of, kind of how the journey will hopefully end up for them.
It's like you use the term source energy. I use that same term. It's like the goal is to pull source energy and be connected to source energy at all times.
Yes.
Without any substances.
Yes.
And it takes some work to do that, and it even takes some meditation and a lot of integration to do that. And that's the ultimate goal.
Well, and how great would that be, rather than relying on our antidepressants and our anti-anxiety medications for the rest of our lives and seeing all the side effects, when you can just experience a handful of these macro doses, just a few, and you could have significant changes. So,
dude, I love hearing you clinically trained psychologists say that. Like, oh my God, you're amazing.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. That's crazy. Well, I appreciate this conversation and your time. And I just want to say how blessed that we all are to have somebody like you that is clinically trained, which brings that credibility, one, and two, the deep knowledge to this space. And it takes people like you to bridge these two worlds. And I think these two worlds need to be bridged, and it's actually happening, which I'm really excited about. This, other world being more and more adopted. There's so many examples of it, and I'll have a lot more guests on this podcast that are doing other versions of things. One that comes to mind is like, I didn't know how much sound waves are used in medical equipment. So a lot of people think, oh, why would I go to a crystal sound bowl healing? It's the same thing in a different frequency. Oh my God, things like that. So
totally,
it'll be an upcoming episode.
I'm glad you're doing that, Matt, and opening people's eyes and their perspectives to this type of healing, because it's just so powerful. So thanks for the work you're doing too.
So thank you. And your website, do you want to? We're going to put links and everything, but what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so the website is, you can either go limitless.co or limitless.me, and I had to be fancy and not put any vowels in there. So Limitless is LMTLSS. You're more than welcome to reach out to us through there, or you can contact Hillary with one L at limitless.co, and she can get you set up. So
beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks again, brother. I appreciate this time, and we'll continue the conversation for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Cheers.
Cheers.